It's 2:13 a.m. A graduate student sits alone in a dim room at Princeton. The chalkboard in front of him is covered in symbols, arrows, strange diagrams. For 7 years, he has been obsessed with a single mathematical problem. Tonight, he finally sees it. Not the answer, the pattern. He runs to the chalkboard and starts writing. Hours later, the proof is complete. That student was Andrew Wiles, and the problem he solved had been unsolved for 358 years. But this moment raises a strange question. What does it actually feel like to think like a math genius? Because their experience of math is very different from what most of us imagine. Number 1. Math geniuses don't see numbers. Let's rewind to childhood. Most kids see math as something like this. A teacher writes numbers on the board, everyone copies formulas, and hopes the calculator saves them. But for some people, something different happens. Instead of numbers, they see patterns. Take this sequence: 1, 4, 9, 16, 25. Most people pause. A math-oriented brain sees it instantly. Squares: 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, 5 squared. To them, math isn't memorization, it's pattern recognition. In fact, research from Stanford University shows that expert mathematicians rely heavily on the brain's visual processing regions when solving problems. The same parts of the brain we use to recognize faces or objects. Meaning when mathematicians look at equations, they're often seeing shapes and structures, not just numbers. Which explains why many mathematicians say math feels less like arithmetic and more like solving puzzles. Number 2. Their brains work differently. Now, here's where it gets weird. Scientists once put professional mathematicians into brain scanners. They asked them to evaluate mathematical statements. You might expect the language centers of the brain to activate. After all, math uses symbols like a language. But that's not what happened. Instead, brain activity lit up in regions responsible for spatial reasoning, logical relationships, and abstract structures. In other words, mathematicians don't read equations like sentences. They experience them more like mental architecture. Imagine looking at a building blueprint. You're not reading it word for word. You're seeing how the structure fits together. For math geniuses, equations are like blueprints of ideas. Number 3. The aha moment is addictive. Back to Andrew Wiles. After years of frustration, confusion, and dead ends, there was suddenly that moment. The click. Mathematicians call this the insight moment, and neuroscience shows it's not just psychological. Right before insight happens, the brain produces a burst of gamma waves linked to sudden understanding. Then the brain releases dopamine, the same chemical associated with rewards. So solving a hard problem can literally feel like cracking a mystery, which is why many mathematicians become obsessed with problems. It's not the numbers, it's the hunt. Imagine spending days chasing a solution and then suddenly realizing you've been looking at it the wrong way the entire time. That moment is pure intellectual adrenaline. Number 4. Math geniuses are often slow thinkers. Here's a myth. People think math geniuses calculate instantly, like human calculators. But many of the greatest mathematicians were actually slow thinkers. They spend enormous amounts of time stuck. Andrew Wiles worked in secret for 7 years. The famous mathematician Alexander Grothendieck once spent years thinking about problems that others considered impossible. Math genius thinking often looks like this: confusion, trying weird ideas, hitting dead ends. Then, suddenly, clarity. It's less like sprinting and more like wandering through a maze until the walls finally make sense. Number 5. They experience beauty in math. Now here's the most surprising part. Mathematicians often describe equations as beautiful, and scientists actually tested this. Researchers at University College London scanned mathematicians while showing them equations they considered elegant. The result? The same brain region activated as when people listen to beautiful music or look at great art. Meaning for mathematicians, an elegant equation can feel like hearing a perfect melody. It's not just correct, it's beautiful. So, what does it feel like to be a math genius? It's not just being good with numbers.
It's seeing hidden patterns in chaos, experiencing the thrill of discovery, spending years chasing an idea, and occasionally feeling the same beauty in an equation that others feel in music, paintings, or poetry. Which might explain why mathematicians sometimes say something strange. They don't believe they invent mathematics. They believe they're simply discovering what was already there.